Hi there, Megan Thompson with Megan Thompson Coaching, and today we're going to cover what to do when you're parenting a sensitive child or a teen who's stuck in the meltdown cycle and school is coming up, right? So what you need to be focused on in terms of returning to the school routine, how to break out of the patterns that you've developed in the summertime, and where to balance it all from, okay? So let's get started. Now, here at MTC, we've helped hundreds of families break out of this meltdown cycle, supporting parents of teenagers as well as the teens themselves, getting motivated and reconnecting to their potential in the school setting when they have a pattern of shutdown and refusal they've broken out of, and doing that all over again when the school routine starts back up. And this is important for you to pay attention to, no matter your sensitive kid's age, as long as they're living in your house and they're in high school age or under. We'll be covering all the challenges that you might be facing, especially if your sensitive kid is dealing with those daily meltdowns or shutdowns. So what do I mean first and foremost? Let's make sure that we're covering the same thing. Parents who are stuck in that meltdown cycle, your child is having meltdowns on a daily basis, hitting, kicking, screaming, running away, throwing things, checking out emotionally, or just shutting down physically as well, like body on the floor, passed out, and not in the sense of physically not present, right? But just I won't mentality, okay? And that can be happening for your child. Your child could be 3, 4, 7, 10, all right? Runs the gamut in terms of age. And then if your child is a teenager, then this might be showing up differently. Your teen might be checking out and zoning out on their screens. You might have struggled this summer with setting appropriate boundaries, finding a way for your teen to engage effectively over the summer so that they aren't focused on just playing video games all day or on FaceTime with their friends or just Netflixing all the time, etc. And so when you're working with your sensitive kid to break out of this routine, it can be really challenging, noticing that for them, it can mean that school's coming and school's hard. And right, if your child is learning, it's likely that they are being challenged. And this challenge can be met with lots of disappointments and frustrations and aggravations and big ineffective behaviors tied with it if your child doesn't know how to manage their emotions safely. So that's what we're covering today. And when we think about the challenges that you could be having, shifting in this routine, highly sensitive kids, parenting a sensitive kid, that your child craves routine, can thrive on it. And it's also true that it could be very difficult to keep your kid on a routine when they have an emotional management problem. When the family dynamic is stuck in this cycle, we see many parents notice, if I could get my kid to stay with a routine for 2 weeks without without having any problems, then this is miracle territory we're in right now. Because honestly, for some kids, those meltdowns happen right in the middle of whatever strategy you're trying to get them to use, or whatever calming plans that you've been trying to implement, and then all of a sudden you're derailed, right? So if you've been working all summer to help your child use regulating coping skills because now they have an opportunity to relax, then this can be pretty daunting. You might be worried about whether it's even worth it to send your kid to school. If your child is benefiting from being at home, you might be considering homeschooling and yet wondering how that would be appropriate for you and your family. Now, obviously, as a parent coach and mental health consultant, we don't advocate one way or the other. We've helped families in all scenarios, parents who homeschool by choice, parents who homeschool because they were quote unquote forced into it, not from a place of making that powerful choice. Their child didn't exhibit the skills to manage their emotions, and so as a result, they felt like the only option they had was to homeschool. And so, being a homeschool parent myself, what I know for sure is that if you don't feel capable of doing that, and that's not your choice, it's a heck of a lot harder to do. And homeschooling is definitely no small feat. And so this might be something that could be running through your mind, or you could also notice that you'd love to do that, but you don't have a choice. You don't think that your child can follow through on your routine that you set. And so it can be difficult to think that you have even a thought of implementing a plan like that. And then obviously, if you're staying with a public school system and you have all kinds of reasons to do that, or a private school system and you have all kinds of reasons to do that, your fears are still relevant, right? You still have a major issue here when your child or teen is stuck in the meltdown cycle and wondering how you'll be able to help your kid out the door on time and participate and follow the expectations of the setting that you've decided for their education. And so when we think about all of these challenges, right, I want to make sure that we're understanding that they all are related in no matter where you school your kid or how you school your kid. How your child is educated isn't the number one way to solve the meltdown cycle. Like I said before, we've helped hundreds of families, and many of them are homeschoolers who are having these issues too. So it's important to first and foremost notice that you're not looking at the school environment as the quick fix or magic pill that will support your child in breaking out of this pattern. Because as a parent, you can start to wonder, right? And this is one of the things that I think it's really important is noticing, this is coming up, this is challenging. It's been challenging year after year after year. Maybe I shouldn't put my kid in this school setting, or maybe I should change my school setting. It makes sense that might be a worry that would be crossing your mind. And with that being said, the environment of the school does not change the meltdown cycle. So wherever you go, there you are, right? Same thing happens for your child. If your child is struggling with generalizing emotional management skills, which highly sensitive kids stuck in the meltdown cycle do struggle with that, then your child is going to struggle at home or in any other new situation in a similar fashion. Or you might see some reduction because perhaps the professionals are a better match for your child's needs. And with that being said, your child still needs to build that skill, right? So you're still in an imbalance of ownership of what needs to be addressed. The family dynamic needs to be addressed, and your child's skill building needs to be addressed. And those can be done without having to change the school environment. So this is the first piece to be paying attention to for you and your family, because when you're thinking about noticing what to be focusing on, right? What to highlight, what to prioritize as your child's routine is about to shift. It's also important to notice what not to prioritize and what beliefs or perspectives or approaches will keep you stuck in this mentality. Okay. So when now that we've taken that off the table, all right, let's also focus on what else can be really challenging. When you have your sensitive child or teen and they are outright refusing to go to school, or because you've likely seen this, you saw this last year, you're going to see it again this year if you're stuck in the same meltdown cycle. And so what you might have experienced in other scenarios is trying to coach your kid in the moment. We can do it. This is the time. Your school is an obligation. You're learning about responsibility. I know it's hard, but you can do it anyways. It's going to be fine, right? All of that reassurance and expecting your kid to take deep breaths in the morning so that they show up to school ready to go, or talking to your teen about what they could, when they're stressing and saying, I can't go to school, I won't go to school, there's no way, right? Trying to help them calm down and slow down in that moment really is a short-lived approach, okay? Teaching your child in that moment when their brain is on overdrive, it's really important to understand as a parent. Of course, your intentions are well intended. You want your child to feel better in that moment, but this is not an experience for your child where they are going to think they are going to feel better. They are in that I can't do it mentality. It is a broken record over and over and over again in their mind. And so that is not a time for you to be teaching live skills. And this is really important when we think about what most parents are taught by traditional professionals. Over here at MTC, we are parent coaches, mental health consultants. We're not your child's therapist. We're not acting as therapists. We're not doing the traditional therapy route for a reason, right? The main reason is that doesn't actually work for sensitive kids stuck in the meltdown cycle. Reviewing what to do next time in a big emotional moment is actually going to be highly ineffective and keep you stuck in that cycle. And this is typical for many people who would hear from school counselors or who would hear from therapists where you're taking your kid to individual therapy, etc. That this is how you should be highlighting what to do, and you'll be, maybe even practicing this and all of that. And that strategy, that tactic is not an effective use of an overarching strategy that's necessary to break out of this pattern. And so it is important for you to notice, because when your child is yelling and fighting, and this can last we've worked with families where 90-minute to 3-hour meltdowns are happening in the morning routine, right? There's no way you're getting your kid to school on time unless you're waking up at the crack of dawn. When this pattern is that intense, which obviously impacts their ability to actually be emotionally on board. I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, I'm not at my best, right? And so same thing's going on for your kid. And so when we think about the emotional experience of your child in that moment, they're highly vulnerable to a lack of skill, and they are also exhibiting a lack of skill. So they're not going to be able to stretch beyond their comfort zone in that moment. They're not teachable in that moment. And that's really important for you to notice, because when you're thinking about supporting your child and building resiliency, you can't do it from a mentality that your child has where they're saying, I think I can't, right? Your child needs to be able to demonstrate the capacity to be the little engine that could. And that doesn't come from coaxing and convincing or reassuring. Okay. And so this is important. When your child is in this loop and they think that something's wrong with them, or that this is broken, you can't try to teach them that it's all going to be fine, because they will not believe you. And that's important to notice, because as you might be hearing, your sensitive kid is telling you, you don't understand, you don't get it, you're not listening to me, I'm not going, you can't make me, all of that. Okay. And that can be happening for, like I said, your 6, 7, 8-year-old, 11-year-old, 12, 13-year-old, etc. All the way up through high school. I'm not doing it. You don't get it. Stop it, Mom. Cut it out, right? All of this experience, okay? You have to be able to dilute the shame to turn this around. Your sensitive kid feels crappy about how they are feeling. And that experience is something that they won't be able to break out of in that moment. All right. A pep talk isn't going to do it. Championing them, trying to tell them that they're all ready to go, that they can show up in an amazing way. You're basically oil and water in this dynamic. You have to be focusing on breaking out of the shame. And so when we're doing this, shame is going to help children stay stuck. Okay. So it's really important for you to notice that your expectations aren't moving your child all the way into an argument. Really, that's what happens when you're convincing your kid they can do otherwise. At that point, they start arguing for their limitations. Okay. And so when we think about supporting your child and being decisive and noticing that they can do it, all of this has to happen outside of this intense moment. All right. And that emotional experience has to come forth in your child noticing what they are capable of, how they can change experiences that they want to have, how life can be different when they make different choices, and all of that emotional experiencing that they have, and how they can feel proud of changing, moving out of their initial impulsive decisions to quit or to avoid or what have you. Needs to come from an observation when they are not distressed. Okay. And so as you're working on this next piece, which is helping your child build that capacity, right? You need to be able to support your child in building capacity for change, building capacity for feeling confident, building for capacity to handle challenges. And this is what we're talking about in terms of noticing the difference between a child who feels capable and a child who thinks that that things don't work out well for them. And that emotional experience that's required is for a child to feel secure in themselves. They need to feel secure in their choices and secure in their ability to creatively solve problems. And many times, highly sensitive kids aren't creatively solving their problems, especially if they're stuck in meltdown cycle, right? Instead, their solution is pretty black and white. I can't, I won't, right? It's either awesome or it's awful. And that experience means your child's not being very creative. They're not relaxed. Highly sensitive kids and non-highly sensitive kids alike, they play, okay? They play when they're relaxed. And so if your child is stuck on talking and thinking and telling you stories about it and you know, dumping all of their worries on you through verbal communication, that means that they are not relaxed enough to feel capable. And this is a pretty clear sign that the meltdown cycle is quite pervasive for your family. And the same thing would be going on for a teenager. Now, you know, if a teenager is not silly and goofy and, you know, able to not take themselves so seriously, you would look at that as a sign of concern, right? Teens still need to be able to play. They still need to be able to be sarcastic, to joke around in a way that is developmentally appropriate. And so if your teen is always focused on, you know, things having to be perfect and that they can't, you know, you know, good, that their, you know, their experience of good, a good enough job is not worth it, right? You know, that perfectionism that will keep them stuck in where they need to get the A+, or they might as well not even try, etc. That experience will be really important for you to notice for your sensitive teen, because they might not be shutting down every day, right? But if they're not trying, then that's the same thing as shutting down. They're just shutting down their potential versus not talking to you. And so it's important to understand where this meltdown, shutdown, refusal cycle is going on, and how your child is dulling their experiences or dulling what's possible for them in their lives when they're stuck in that meltdown, shutdown cycle. And so your child needs to be able to feel like they can handle challenges. And with that being said, for you in terms of how to shift out of this routine in a systematic way, the important piece that we tell our clients and share with our clients more specifically is in noticing that the changes in the routine have to first come in your child's mentality, rather than in shifting the actual actions you're going to take and, you know, what time they should be waking up and how you're going to help them do that, and how, you know, what you're expecting of them in the morning and all of that. So in terms of setting your children up and your teens up for success and being able to do that, you need to assess the major challenges or changes, or both, that you've experienced over the summer. Assess your summer. Observe what you've been able to accomplish this summer in terms of your child's skill sets, and then observe where your child was struggling, and pay attention to the challenges that you've had with your child following through on that routine, and how long it took them to acclimate to the more lax experience of being in the summer. You know, just by nature of, for many of you, might not have been associated with camps. You might have had a lot more idle time or downtime. And this might have meant for some of you, your sensitive kid is actually more emotionally calm because there's less go. And then for some of you, it means that it's been pretty challenging to get your child to leave the house and go do things, etc. Because the expectation is really more relational. You want to have fun with your family versus external, which is, you know, to go see friends or to go to school and not, you know, worried about getting in trouble if you don't go and things like that. So when you assess the situation and the major changes that your child has experienced going from going to school to not going to school over the summer, you also need to pay attention to how you've set the environment up for them over the summer. Was it just, did you have a lot of go activities? Were you having a ton of fun? I hope so. And then that means that it's likely that your routine was not very routine, right? And so paying attention to that means that it's important to start small and shifting out of this dynamic, that trying to do an overhaul in 4 or 5 or 7 days before your kid goes back to school is going to be a giant feat and be quite jarring for your sensitive child. And so when we think about shifting this, many parents notice, right, and you've heard me say before, that there's a 4-pronged strategy to changing the meltdown cycle and breaking out of this pattern. First and foremost is your assessment of where your child is and what they're capable of. Your mindset needs to be on point, and noticing that and observing that. You need to be able to see how much is too much for your kid in this within the next 7 days or whatever, depending on when you start school. And then also observe for your child what they can be capable of and how you can set that vision with them, that they can handle it. And those two things are simultaneous. They might feel like they're opposite, but they're not. They're both possible for being true at the same time. And then when we can look at understanding that component of envisioning what the routine is, then you want to make sure that you're pinpointing the behaviors that you want to highlight with your sensitive kid. And you do that in a way that allows your child to receive feedback in a more systematic way, rather than saying everything needs to be fixed. You need to be up, ready, and sharp, tip-top shape by the time school rolls around, whatever day this is. And that ability for your child to demonstrate, to experience being demonstrated grace, allows them to demonstrate grace for themselves. With that being said, it's important to have a mental awareness of what is an emotionally appropriate timeline for a sensitive kid to be adjusting to the school schedule. I would say 1 to 2 weeks would be an appropriate timeline for your child out of the meltdown cycle to manage this capacity. Now, if your child is stuck in the meltdown cycle, it's likely to take them much longer to break out of this pattern of refusal and challenges and just rolling back into a routine. And this is important for you to be able to not only be prepared for, but also notice what's possible for your child when you're not in this meltdown cycle. Okay, if you're not in the meltdown cycle, then you could be over this hump in less than a week, or in under a week, or max 2 weeks, depending on the intensity and the age of your child. And that's important for you to notice. How much are you willing to forego in your family's dynamic? How many days, weeks, months, etc. Are you perpetuating this negative experience and the suffering by trying to throw things at the wall and see what sticks? And so if you are a parent who's ready to break out of this pattern and you're ready to do it systematically, then I would encourage you to book a call with our team. Because once we teach you how to playfully communicate with your child those limits, support them in feeling capable and managing their emotions, managing themselves in a more effective way so that they don't have the ability to go straight into the world is ending and life would be better off without me, or you're awful, I can't believe you're such a mean parent, whatever. All of those dynamics can melt away. And when you have that skill set, to support your child and for your teen to co-lead themselves alongside you, to take ownership of their routine and their emotional management skills, then that allows for much more potential for your family, right? We can look at what is more appropriate for a child to be demonstrating at this age. It's not developmentally appropriate for a sensitive child or not highly sensitive child to be having daily meltdowns or shutdowns. This is true for children ages 4 through adulthood. Shutting down, closing off, melting down, thinking the world is ending, or responding as if the world is ending to any emotional challenge, big or small, is not developmentally appropriate. And even children under 4, I would venture to say, we've helped parents break out of this pattern with children younger than 4, that the average child under 4 should not be having daily meltdowns either, Though we might say that some children, 5 minutes or less, that might be emotionally appropriate given some different factors for them. But developmentally, over the age of 4, children do not experience that level of intense emotional overwhelm that is fully brain based and brain development based. Instead, it's environment based after 4. Okay, so this is really important for you to notice. If you've been struggling with this for a year, 2, 10 years, then we definitely want to be fixing this behavior pattern in the whole family dynamic, rather than just assuming that your child will eventually grow out of it, or telling yourself that this is a problem for your child only. This is definitely a family system issue. The whole family is impacting this behavior pattern, and the whole family needs to take action in shifting out of the dynamic. Okay, so that routine, that ability to shift out of that in an effective way, if you're looking to be able to do that consistently, right? Like clockwork, every time you transition, because you might have a fall break coming up. You might have, we know you might have Thanksgiving and the holidays in just 6 months from now. And if this is the challenge that you had leaving the school pattern 3 months ago, and you're having the same pattern going into school now, then I encourage you to notice how much more are you going to be dealing with come the transition out of Thanksgiving vacation, or out of Christmas vacation, for winter holiday with your child, and start to notice what do you have in your future lined up that is going to help you systematically break out of this pattern, rather than just wondering and seeing how are we doing based on the challenges that your family faces, and gauging your child's resilience based on how they're handling those challenges, but waiting for those challenges to show up to really get any evidence on whether or not your child is resilient yet. That's an important way to notice that you can be thinking about solving this problem in a different way. Okay, so how do you do that? Is the MTC system going to work well for you? I don't know. You have to book a call with us. You have to have a conversation. All right. If this is the first time that you're listening to our show, then I encourage you to keep listening and paying attention. I've had a multitude of lessons set up for you. Make sure that you listen to more than one, especially because this one's a little short. But in the meantime, while you're waiting to speak to a member of our team, you can do that. And so between now and then, go ahead and book your conversation, meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk. Or if you're parenting a sensitive teen, meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk. And on that conversation, we'll talk about where you're struggling. We're going to cover all of what you've been challenged with. We'll zoom out. We're not going to just look at the last, 10 days or what you're struggling with right now, this current season. We're going to look at the big picture. Okay. Within reason, we don't need to hear your whole life's story in order to get a clear picture. My team members are experts in assessing this problem and understanding pretty clearly whether or not we can help. With that being said, we also need to know what your goals are. In order to know whether or not we can help, we need to observe, where are you headed? What are your dreams for your family? And does that match up with the dreams that we've helped other families achieve? And if that's the case, then we'll tell you how our system would be appropriate for your family, and whether or not it would be a match. And if it is, you'll know exactly how to take action on that right away. Same phone call, you can break out of that pattern. And then if that's not the case, okay, if you think that something else, if our coaches notice that where you're stuck, what you're struggling with, what your goals aren't a match for what we do here at MTC, then we will talk to you about that instead. We won't be sharing what we do here at MTC and how it would apply to your family if it literally doesn't apply, right? Instead, we'll be coaching you on noticing how you can break out of this pattern by seeking other professional support. If your child is having daily meltdowns, you're going to need professional support, whether that's with us or with somebody else. Would be, likely a mutual decision. With that being said, here at MTC, we've helped people do that in as little as 8 weeks. So you can observe and pay attention to, if you're consulting with other professionals, how long they think this will take, right? Because the traditional model will tell you it's going to take a year, couple years, etc., keep you stuck in that pattern consistently because it's reactive. But the work that we do here at MTC, we can break alongside with parents, break them out of that daily meltdown cycle pretty swiftly because we've got this down to a science. And it's also true that we know exactly who we know how to help. And we know exactly where this system works well for, or who this system works well for. And it doesn't work well for everybody. So we don't invite everybody in to work with us. We're happy to be okay with that. With you as well, and point you in a different direction if that's the case, whether that be, like I said, therapy, any other evidence-based approach, or a different coaching model, etc. So next, all right, again, like I said, go ahead to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk or meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk to have a conversation with our team. That conversation will be incredibly eye-opening and could be quite transformative. Especially if you're fit to work with us. Okay. Again, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. We look forward to talking to you soon and